Welcome to another deep dive. Today we are looking at a really fascinating stack of
Yeah,
sources.
we have this mix of local Danish ecological reports
Mm,
and, well, a surprisingly rigorous school project by two 11-year-old boys, Kesser and Steen.
right. And our mission today is to see how their virtual walk along a Danish coastal trail uncovers, layers of local history, environmental science, and even glacial time.
It really covers a lot of ground.
It does. So just imagine this over-prepared city tourist decked out in pristine, expensive outdoor gear, stopping these two kids to ask if a nature trail is muddy right after a downpour.
It's a perfect illustration of how disconnected we've become from physical environments. I mean, she basically expects a sanitized nature walk without the actual, nature.
Exactly. And wait, why wouldn't she just look at her phone for the trail conditions?
Right. Actually, Steen points that out in the report.
Well,
But Kesser and Steen aren't just going for a stroll. They're analyzing a virtual video tour of the Sølager ferry area on the fjord.
and this is where we see a totally different relationship with the weather.
Yeah, we're introduced to the history of the old fishermen in the fjord. And they don't use massive commercial cutters. They use techniques honed over thousands of years, driving poles directly into the seabed to set specialized nets and traps.
And the sources describe these guys tasting the air instead of checking forecasts. I initially thought of it as an inner biological weather app, but it's more mechanical than that, right?
Spot on. They aren't getting a digital prediction. They are physically reading micro-indicators, like how a drop in barometric pressure feels on the skin.
Or sudden shifts in bird behavior.
Exactly. Because they are so intimately connected to the fjord's microclimate and tidal movements, they just understand the ecosystem's limits. They catch only what the fjord can naturally replenish.
But, well, here is the tragedy of this whole setup. Those ancient, sustainable traps, they're increasingly coming up empty.
Yeah, it's grim. I mean, the traditional knowledge is completely useless if the ecosystem collapses.
And the sources document severe oxygen depletion and pollution in the fjord. Agricultural runoff is feeding massive algae blooms, which basically suffocate the marine life.
Right, and the fishermen's deep understanding of the weather obviously can't predict man-made hypoxia.
Okay, so I get tourists being careless, but the sources mention local politicians claiming the view is just borrowed. Why would locals treat their own backyard like a disposable commodity?
Well, you'd think their livelihood is tied to the fjord, but the sources offer a pretty biting analogy for this mindset.
Yeah.
And to be clear, we're just impartially reporting the social commentary from the text here. We aren't taking a stance on local politics.
Of course, yeah, we're just unpacking the sources. So what was the analogy?
They compare it to tourists rushing to claim hotel pool chairs with towels while guzzling cheap carton juice at a breakfast buffet.
Wow. That is a vivid picture.
It really is. It's a mentality of immediate extraction. The fjord isn't treated as a living system. It's treated as a static resource to be consumed quickly.
Which brings us right back to Kesser and Steen's virtual walk, because nature is decidedly not static.
No, definitely not. They're observing this specific mud zone under a hanging cliff, which is an area defined by ever-running water from local springs.
And suddenly, right on the video, a mudslide happens.
Yeah, and this is where their assignment gets really technical. They're studying the Danish underground, which is incredibly rich in glacial clay.
Right. So when the ever-running water from those springs hits the clay strata, it doesn't just make it wet.
No, the water actually acts as a physical lubricant between the layers of compressed clay.
Oh, wow. So when it reaches a critical saturation point, the friction holding the topsoil just fails.
Exactly, and gravity simply pulls the whole mass down.
So the overprepared city tourist from the beginning was actually right to be worried. Kesser even jokes his boots wouldn't have survived.
But they don't just run away from the mess. They take empty bottles to collect water samples from the runoff.
And they specifically plan to freeze them. Why the freezer? What are they trying to capture?
Well, freezing the samples instantly halts microbial metabolism. They're just looking at dirt. They are preserving a precise, real-time snapshot of the water's biological state.
Which allows them to take the samples back to a lab to test for the exact chemical markers, like the agricultural runoff we mentioned earlier.
Right. It proves that if you know how to look, the physical environment tells the complete history of an ecosystem.
It's incredible. A simple question about a muddy trail led us into ancient fishing traps, local environmental politics, and the hydrological mechanics of glacial clay.
It really is an amazing project.
So here is a final thought for you to mull over. If two 11-year-olds can uncover the complex intersection of geology, history, and microbiology just by observing the mud and water on their local trail, what invisible histories and microscopic processes are constantly churning right beneath the soles of your own boots? Next time you sidestep a puddle, you might just be missing the biggest story of all.